Sometimes the promise of tomorrow can pull a person through today. We learn from the past, of course, old lessons, old scars, but the real spark often lives ahead of us. A reason waiting in the future. A dream not built yet. When someone holds on to that picture of what could be, even the hardest days feel a little lighter. Because the future, even imagined, can give us the strength to keep moving. There is a quiet idea that explains much about how a life unfolds. It is the idea that reasons shape outcomes. Not talent alone, not circumstances alone, and not even luck alone. Beneath the surface of every difficult journey is a set of reasons powerful enough to keep someone moving when everything in them wants to stop. When those reasons are strong, people endure days that would otherwise break them. Think about the moments when life becomes unbearably heavy. The days when exhaustion settles deep into the body and every problem feels bigger than your strength. In those moments, ability is rarely the deciding factor. Intelligence does not suddenly disappear. Health does not instantly collapse. What often fades instead is the reason to keep pushing forward. But when someone holds a reason that burns brightly enough, the story changes. A parent wakes up after 3 hours of sleep because their child depends on them. An athlete continues training through pain because they see the future victory clearly in their mind. A student studies late into the night because they believe their effort will open doors that were once closed. In each case, the day may still be difficult, but the reason behind the effort gives the struggle meaning. This is why some people endure seasons that seem impossible. They do not possess magical strength. They simply carry reasons that are larger than the obstacles in front of them. When the purpose is strong enough, even the heaviest days become something a person can walk through instead of something that stops them completely. On the other hand, when people say they have no goals, the problem is often misunderstood. It is tempting to assume they lack discipline or intelligence. Sometimes others even assume they lack ambition or courage. But more often, the real issue lies somewhere deeper. They have not yet discovered a reason that truly matters to them. Without a powerful reason, goals feel artificial. They become tasks written on paper instead of destinations that pull someone forward. The mind struggles to commit energy to something that does not feel meaningful. It is not a failure of capability. It is the absence of a compelling why. This is why developing strong reasons for the future is one of the most important things a person can do. A clear reason acts like a compass during uncertainty. It gives direction when confusion appears and resilience when progress becomes slow. The road may still be long and difficult, but the reason reminds you why the journey began in the first place. When someone discovers a reason that resonates deeply with who they are, something changes. Effort no longer feels like constant resistance. Challenges still exist, but they begin to look like necessary steps rather than barriers. The future becomes something worth moving toward rather than something distant and abstract. In this sense, the shape of a life is often determined long before the results appear. It is determined in the quiet moment when a person decides what their reasons will be. Because once those reasons become strong enough, even the hardest days lose their power to stop the journey. There is another force that quietly shapes the direction of our lives, and it often comes from somewhere we rarely question: the past. The past has a strange kind of weight to it. It can sit on a person's shoulders, like gravity pulling downward, with memories of mistakes, disappointments, and moments that did not go the way we hoped. Many people carry these memories longer than they realize. A failed attempt begins to feel like a permanent label. A harsh criticism echoes long after the words were spoken. A decision made years ago starts to look like proof that the future will unfold the same way. Slowly, the past begins to behave like gravity. It keeps the mind looking downward, replaying old scenes, instead of imagining new possibilities. Gravity does not shout. It does not demand attention. It simply pulls quietly and constantly. When someone allows the past to define what they believe about themselves, that pull becomes stronger. Regret begins to shape expectations. Discouragement becomes a lens through which every new challenge is viewed. And before long, the future feels smaller than it really is. But there is another force that can exist at the same time, one that works in the opposite direction. While the past pulls backward and downward, dreams and goals can act like magnets pulling forward. They create movement, not by pushing from behind, but by attracting the person towards something ahead. When someone begins to imagine a future that truly matters to them, something subtle begins to shift. The difficult days do not disappear. The obstacles are still real, but the direction of attention changes. Instead of constantly looking behind, the mind begins to look ahead. A meaningful goal has a kind of invisible pull. It draws energy, focus, and persistence toward it. The clearer and more compelling that goal becomes, the stronger the pull grows. What once felt exhausting begins to feel purposeful. Hard work starts to feel connected to something larger than the present moment. This is why some people seem able to move through seasons that would stop others completely. They are not immune to discouragement. They have simply developed goals that are strong enough to compete with the gravity of the past. The magnet in front of them becomes stronger than the weight behind them. And when that happens, progress begins to take on a different rhythm. A difficult day no longer feels like the end of the road. It becomes part of the journey towards something that still exists ahead. Even small steps forward begin to matter, because each step moves closer to the direction that matters most. In this way, life often becomes a balance between these two forces. The gravity of yesterday and the magnet of tomorrow are both present. The difference lies in which one a person allows to shape their movement. When the pull of a meaningful future becomes stronger than the weight of the past, even the hardest seasons can become something a person walks through, rather than something that holds them in place. There is a quiet quality that often appears in the lives of people who keep moving forward even when results are not yet visible. That quality is faith. Not in the sense of blind optimism, but in the deeper sense of being able to see something that does not yet exist. Faith is the ability to imagine a future that has not arrived and still act as if it is possible. It allows a person to work, to plan, and to persist, even when the evidence around them has not yet caught up with what they believe can happen. One of the simplest ways to understand this idea is through the rhythm of farming. Every spring, a farmer walks out into a field that appears empty. There is no crop rising from the soil, no sign of the harvest that will eventually come months later. Yet, the farmer plants anyway. Why? Because the farmer can already see what others might not notice. In his mind, the empty field is not empty at all. He can imagine the rows of crops that will grow there. He can picture the harvest that will eventually fill the barns. The seeds he places into the soil are small, but the vision behind them is much larger. Without that ability to see the future harvest, the act of planting would make little sense. But with that vision, the work becomes natural. Faith turns the invisible into something worth acting upon. In many ways, goals serve a similar purpose in our own lives. A goal allows a person to imagine a finished version of the future before it exists. It creates a mental picture of what life could look like when effort and time begin to take shape. When someone holds a meaningful goal, they begin to see possibilities where there was once uncertainty. They can imagine the accomplishments they hope to achieve, the places they hope to experience, and the kind of person they hope to become along the way. This kind of vision is powerful because it gives direction to everyday effort. The work of today becomes connected to the image of tomorrow. Just like the farmer who plants seeds while already imagining the harvest, a person begins to act in ways that support the future they believe is possible. Faith in this sense is not about pretending that challenges will not appear. It is about maintaining the ability to picture the outcome even while the field still looks empty. It is the quiet confidence that something meaningful can grow from the seeds being planted today. And when someone allows themselves to see that future clearly enough, the present moment begins to change. Effort becomes purposeful. Patience becomes easier, and the journey begins to feel like the natural path toward a harvest that has already been imagined. When people think about the future, they usually approach it in one of two ways. Some face it with apprehension, while others face it with anticipation. The difference between these two experiences can quietly shape the direction of an entire life. For many, the future feels uncertain and even unsettling. It appears as a wide space filled with unanswered questions. Without a clear picture of what lies ahead, the mind often fills that space with worry. Doubt begins to take hold, and the days begin to feel like something to simply get through rather than something to move toward. This apprehension rarely comes from a lack of ability or opportunity. More often, it grows from the absence of a clearly imagined future. When someone has not taken the time to think about what they truly want their life to become, the future remains undefined. And an undefined future can easily feel intimidating. But there is another way to approach the years ahead. Some people meet the future with anticipation. They wake up with a sense that something meaningful is unfolding. Even when challenges appear, they carry a quiet excitement about where their efforts may lead. This feeling of anticipation does not happen by accident. It usually begins with the simple act of designing the future intentionally. When a person takes time to imagine what they would like their life to look like, they begin to form clear goals. These goals act like anchors for the imagination. They give shape to what was once uncertain. Once those goals become clear, something interesting begins to happen. The mind starts to return to them again and again. They capture attention in a way that vague wishes never could. A clearly defined goal has the power to influence everyday choices, guiding decisions about how time is spent, where energy is focused, and what actions move a person forward. Over time, these small daily decisions begin to build something larger. Instead of drifting through days with no particular direction, a person begins to move with intention. The future becomes something they are actively shaping, rather than something that simply arrives on its own. This is the quiet difference between merely making a living and intentionally designing a life. Making a living often focuses only on the necessities of the present moment. The days revolve around paying bills, meeting obligations, and maintaining stability. Designing a life, on the other hand, asks a different question. It asks what kind of life a person truly hopes to build over time. It invites someone to imagine not only how they will survive the years ahead, but how they might shape those years into something meaningful. And when that vision becomes clear, the future no longer feels like something to fear. It begins to feel like something worth looking forward to. At some point, reflection naturally leads to action. Once a person begins to understand the power of reasons, the pull of meaningful goals, and the importance of imagining the future, the next step becomes clear. It is time to begin shaping that future intentionally. One of the most powerful ways to do that is through the simple act of writing down long-range goals. Before looking forward, however, it helps to take a quiet moment to look back. Each life already contains evidence of progress. There are things you once hoped for that eventually became real. There are skills you developed, challenges you overcame, and experiences you once imagined that are now part of your story. Reflecting on those achievements reminds you that growth is not just a possibility. It is something you have already lived through. When people pause to recognize what they have already accomplished, something important begins to happen. Confidence quietly returns. The future begins to feel less distant and more reachable. Instead of seeing only uncertainty ahead, you begin to remember that many good things in life once started as ideas in your mind. From that place of reflection, the next step is to begin writing down the things you would truly like to see in the years ahead. Imagine looking forward across the next decade of your life. 10 years is a meaningful stretch of time. It is long enough for remarkable change to occur, yet close enough to feel connected to the choices you make today. The invitation is simple but powerful. Write down at least 50 things you would genuinely like to have experienced, become, or accomplish within the next 10 years. The number may seem large at first, but that is part of the exercise. It encourages your imagination to move beyond the first few obvious answers and begin exploring what truly matters to you. The most important part of this process is honesty. This list is not about what you think you can achieve. It is about what you truly desire. Sometimes people quietly limit their dreams before they even write them down. They measure their hopes against current circumstances or past disappointments. But this moment asks for something different. It asks you to imagine what you would want if possibility were open before you. As you begin thinking about your list, you may notice how many areas of life it can include. Some of the things you write may involve experiences you have always wanted to have. Perhaps places you would love to travel, cultures you hope to explore, or adventures that have lived quietly in your imagination. Other goals might relate to your work or career. You may envision building a certain kind of business, reaching a meaningful professional milestone, or developing expertise in an area that deeply interests you. These ambitions often reflect the ways people hope to contribute their talents to the world. Family aspirations may also find their place on this list. Some people imagine creating a stable and loving home, strengthening relationships, or building traditions that bring people together over the years. These hopes often reveal the deeper values that shape a meaningful life. Personal development can also appear among these goals. You might hope to learn new skills, expand your knowledge, or become a stronger, wiser version of yourself. Growth in character, discipline, and understanding often becomes just as important as external accomplishments. Financial and investment goals may naturally emerge as well. You might envision building security, creating opportunities for the future, or developing resources that allow greater freedom in how you live and give. Health and well-being may also find their place in this vision. Some people dream of greater strength, vitality, and balance in their lives. They imagine caring for their bodies in ways that allow them to fully experience the years ahead. As this list grows, something subtle begins to happen. The future starts to feel more vivid. Instead of existing as an abstract idea, it begins to take shape through the words you place on paper. Each goal becomes a small window into the life you hope to create. And with every idea you write down, your imagination stretches a little further, reminding you that the future is not simply something that happens. In many ways, it is something that begins with the courage to imagine it first. Once the list of possibilities begins to take shape, the next step is to give those dreams a sense of time. A goal without a time frame often remains only a wish. But when time enters the picture, the goal begins to feel more real. It becomes something that can gradually move from imagination into experience. This part of the process is simple but powerful. Look at the goals you have written and begin to place them into 4 time horizons: 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Each of these horizons represents a different distance into the future, and each invites you to think about your life in a slightly different way. The 1 year horizon asks what could realistically begin unfolding within the next 12 months. These goals often relate to progress that can start fairly soon, changes in habit skills. You could begin developing projects that could take shape within a shorter period of time. The 3 year horizon allows the imagination to stretch a little further. 3 years is long enough for significant development. It gives room for growth, for learning, and for larger achievements that require patience and steady effort. 5 years opens an even wider view. In 5 years, entire chapters of life can evolve. Careers can transform, financial stability can grow, and personal development can deepen in ways that are difficult to see from the present moment. And then there is the 10-year horizon. 10 years invites you to think about the longer arc of your life. It encourages you to imagine what you might become over time, what experiences you might gather, and what kind of life you might gradually build if you move forward with intention. As you place each goal into one of these time frames, another interesting step follows. Begin counting them. Notice how many goals fall into each horizon. This simple act of counting helps bring balance to the vision of the future. It prevents all hopes from clustering only in the distant years or only in the near future. Once you see how they are distributed, choose 4 goals from each time category. These selected goals become the ones you will begin focusing on more clearly. They represent a small but meaningful set of destinations spread across different points in the future. Now something even more important begins. Instead of simply reading the words you have written, begin to picture them. Imagine each of these goals as if it were already part of your life. See the details surrounding them. Picture where you are, what you are doing, and how it feels to have reached that point. Allow your mind to explore these scenes fully. The 1 year goals may feel close and tangible. The 3 and 5 year goals may feel like unfolding journeys. And the 10-year goals may appear as powerful visions of who you are becoming over time. The key is to imagine them not as distant possibilities, but as future memories waiting to happen. When a person begins to see their goals with this level of clarity, the future becomes easier to believe in. And when belief grows stronger, the path toward those goals begins to feel more natural with each passing day. As the goals begin to take shape on paper, another step quietly determines how powerful they will become. It is not enough simply to list what you want. Each goal must also have a clear reason behind it. The reason is what gives the goal its energy. Without a strong purpose, even a well-written goal can remain only an idea. It may look impressive on paper, but it does not move the heart or stir consistent action. But when a goal is connected to a meaningful reason, something changes. The goal stops being just a destination and begins to feel like a necessity. This is why it becomes important to write down the reasons behind every goal you have selected. Ask yourself why that goal matters to you. Why is it important that it happens? What would it mean for your life, for your family, or for the person you hope to become? Often the surface of a goal is not the true source of motivation. Take something like a dream house. On its own, a house is simply a physical object. But the real power of that goal may come from something deeper. It might represent security for your family, a place where meaningful memories are created, or a symbol of years of effort finally coming together. When the deeper reason becomes clear, the goal takes on new significance. It becomes connected to values, relationships, and purpose. That connection is what fuels persistence during the difficult days. In many ways, the purpose behind the goal is stronger than the object itself. The house, the achievement, or the milestone may be visible symbols, but the reason behind them is what truly drives action. And something remarkable often happens when that reason grows strong enough. The challenges that once seemed complicated begin to feel more manageable. The path forward becomes clearer. When the why becomes powerful, the how begins to reveal itself one step at a time. As the goals and their reasons become clearer, another thoughtful question naturally begins to appear. It is a quiet but powerful question. What kind of person must I become in order to achieve the things I truly want? This question shifts the focus in an important way. Instead of looking only at the goals themselves, it turns attention inward. It invites a person to think about growth, character, and the qualities that shape a meaningful life. Because in many ways, what we achieve is closely connected to who we become. Opportunities often expand as a person grows in wisdom, health, skill, and discipline. A stronger mind makes better decisions. A healthier body carries greater energy. New skills open doors that were once closed, and discipline provides the steady effort that turns possibility into reality. Over time, these qualities begin to change the direction of a life. As a person grows, new paths begin to appear. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming start to feel manageable. Possibilities that once felt distant begin to move within reach. In this sense, achievement is rarely separate from personal development. The two move together. The person you become influences the opportunities you can recognize, the responsibilities you can carry, and the goals you can sustain. And so the journey toward meaningful goals becomes more than a pursuit of things. It becomes a process of becoming, of shaping yourself into the kind of person capable of building the life you imagine. Once your goals and their reasons are written down, the journey does not end there. In many ways, this is where the real relationship with your goals begins. They are not meant to be written once and then forgotten. Instead, they should remain close to you, somewhere you can return to often. Many people find it helpful to keep them in a notebook or journal, a place where the future you are designing stays visible. Reviewing your goals regularly keeps them alive in your mind. Each time you read them, they remind you of the direction you have chosen. Over time, you may notice that some goals become clearer, while others evolve as your understanding grows. That is part of the process. Goals are not rigid instructions carved in stone. They are living reflections of what matters most to you, and it is natural to refine them as you move forward. Short-term goals play a special role in this journey. While long-term goals provide the vision, short-term goals help build confidence. They give you opportunities to experience progress sooner. Each small accomplishment becomes proof that forward movement is possible. With every step achieved, momentum begins to grow. A completed task, a new skill learned, or a small milestone reached, all reinforce the belief that larger goals are within reach. These early successes act like stepping stones, carrying you steadily toward the bigger picture you imagined. Along the way, it is important to pause and recognize progress. Celebrating achievements, even the modest ones, strengthens motivation and reminds you that effort is producing results. At the same time, not every attempt will unfold perfectly. There will be losses, setbacks, and lessons learned through experience. Those moments are not signs of failure. They are part of the learning process that strengthens resilience. The people you surround yourself with can also influence this journey. Being around individuals who expect more from themselves and from you can raise your own standards. Their encouragement, example, and belief can quietly reinforce your commitment to keep moving forward. Through all of it, perseverance becomes the thread that ties the journey together. By continuing to review your goals, refining them, learning from every step, and staying connected to the reasons behind them, you gradually shape the future you first imagined on paper. Goal setting is never the finish line. It is simply the beginning of a much longer and more meaningful journey. A life is shaped gradually through reflection, adjustment, and steady growth over time. Keep returning to your vision. Review your goals, refine them as you learn, and continue becoming the person who can bring them to life. And if these reflections resonated with you, consider liking and subscribing so we can continue exploring this journey together.